All right, we are recording. So, in the game, for the longest time, there have been elemental effects, but those effects, well, don't have any effect. But I have begun to fix that. Twilight's fire damage is now visible as fire damage, and some enemies can be more resistant to it or not resistant at all. Let's see if I can get another good one. On Applejack, I have a test attack that is electric, and as you can see, it is actually healing Zappo Topaz here. But I have switched up Rarity's regular attack so that it deals earth damage, and that's not actually more effective than anything else. Okay. I will be able to show you what it looks like when an enemy is weak to a particular attack, though. Switch back to Twilight here, switch to her fireballs. Oh, and by the by, players can also be set up so that different elements will heal them if they take damage from them, or they can be immune to an element. Like, I've set Twilight up to be arcane immune in this test game. Actually, let me show you what this looks like here. Okay, that ice enemy there is obviously resistant to arcane damage, but when I shoot it with fireballs, it says vulnerable. You get the idea. That's what it looks like in-game, and also in-game I have added these little damage markers. Non-elemental damage will have no icon. It'll just be a flashing number, and you still decide what color those non-elemental flashes are going to be. But if it's got an actual element associated with it, you'll see that element. Applejack's bullets are doing nature damage now. Rainbow Dash's bullets do... Oops. Rainbow Dash's bullets do electric damage. And Rarity's deal earth damage. And as you can see, the caption sort of follows the enemy as it moves. It won't follow players, but after a second or so, the captions will stop accumulating the damage and sort of become detached. So this is finally making elemental damage mean something. So now it's time to start talking about how it is that we can make these things happen. Well, let's start with playable characters and how those can have elemental damage attached to them, both in terms of defenses and in terms of regular attacks. And I put this way up here. Okay, so there is a new tab up here, Elemental Defenses. When you click on Add Defense, it'll pop this up, and it won't show elements that you've already put in here. And there are basically 4 different types of defenses. Weakness is this red shield with cracks in it. Resistance is this blue shield with an exclamation mark on it. Immunity is a yellow shield with a star, and healing is a green shield with a heart and a plus on it. So let's say that we want Twilight to be resistant to earth damage. And let's say that she takes 50% damage from it. I can use these controls to update the percent. So I click OK, and there's a new resistance listed here. Let's say that I want to make her vulnerable to dark damage. You go to weakness here, and as you can see, it automatically makes sure that the damage multiplier is over 100%. You cannot have the damage multiplier less than 101%. So let's say that she takes double damage from this. Click OK, and there it is. The dark icon is a moon here. Let's see. There are a few things which I should mention here. Usually enemies deal only 1 point of damage, so how do we handle that when we have fractions of damage here? What ends up happening is when the game realizes that, hey, there's a fraction of damage that's supposed to be dealt here, it uses a random number generator to decide how much damage should be dealt. There's a 75% chance that damage will be dealt to Twilight when it's lightning damage, or I should say 1 point of lightning damage, and there's a 25% chance that no damage will be dealt. Either way, it's going to say that she's resistant to it. It'll also say that she's vulnerable to fire damage, and it's again a roll of the dice. Will she take 1 fire damage or will she take 2 fire damage? It's a 50-50 chance when the damage multiplier is 1.5 up here. For dark damage here, obviously, the damage multiplier is double, so that won't be necessary. So that was the way you do things in terms of elemental defenses. But for custom attacks, obviously it's the same as it ever was. There is a new type of custom attack, which I will get into in another video. But for her bullets, there is an element field here. This wasn't here before. You can determine what element a character's damage is going to deal here on the bullet stats panel, and you can change it to whatever you like. I should probably show you elemental defenses on enemies as well. You go to globals, you click on elemental effects here, and you can tell I have expanded this a lot, and not just in terms of adding air and water damage. At first it was just going to be elemental antipodes. Electric is the opposite of earth, or I should say storm is the opposite of earth. Water is the opposite of fire. Nature is the opposite of arcane. Light is the opposite of dark. I was going to do that, but then I realized, I should really split out air damage from lightning damage and stop calling the whole thing storm damage. That can be the opposite of earth, is what I thought at first, and then I thought, okay, let's split out ice and water into 2 separate types, and then electric damage can be the opposite of water damage. But then I realized water damage really should be super effective against fire, and, well, it just went downhill from there. Here's where you set the non-elemental colors. Editing individual elements is the same as it ever was. It's still just the icon, the 2 colors, and the name. But now let's look at this tab, Standard Enemy Damage. You can determine what type of damage on contact different enemies are going to deal. That's what these contact damage drop-downs are supposed to be all about. And if an enemy has an attack, like the orange enemy shoots fireballs, you can decide what type of damage that's going to deal. Same thing even with the rainbow boss. But each one of these has a defenses pop up here too. Click on this, and this shows the blue enemy's defenses. He takes triple damage from fire, no damage from water. I haven't actually added any water attacks for the player characters yet, so I guess that's irrelevant. And only takes a quarter damage from ice. So that's how you set up the defenses for standard enemies and how you set up their elemental damage. Let me show you how you do this for NPCs. You've probably already guessed what it is, but I'll show it to you guys anyway. So let me just open Chill Chalcedony here. That's a new enemy that's not quite a standard enemy, but oh well. It's got 2 behaviors, obviously. There's combat and collapsing. So I simply called that one fire, which is kind of dumb because it's an ice element enemy, but whatever. Go to the combat tab, and finally the defenses area shows a list of defenses. It works the same way as player characters and standard enemies. So basically that's it for elemental defenses. Now elements actually have a real meaning in the game. So yeah, I figure that's going to be necessary if I'm going to have elemental damage. So that's about it for elemental damage. Next video is going to be about this new type of attack. I think you actually saw a little bit of it when I was fighting Chill Chalcedony in the game here. Let me just reset this. You can make the enemies respawn by exiting a room and coming back into it. As you can see, these little flashy crystals fly out from Chill Chalcedony. They deal ice damage, or wood if you don't get healed from it. And as you can see, Twilight will be healed for a random amount, either 2 or 3. And I just killed Chill Chalcedony, but oh well. I will be showing you that attack next time.